Obviously, a big part of editing is grammar. So one grammar concept that is crucial that we go over together is sentence fragments. It's one of the largest issues with student writing that I see, is that students tend to write in sentence fragments. We can think in sentence fragments, and we speak oftentimes in sentence fragments, and nobody bats an eye, and it's not a big deal. But when we write, it's a more formal form of communication. And as it says up here, grammar is just the study of effective written communication. Okay? Don't get so bummed out when you hear the word grammar, because all grammar is studying how to translate your thoughts into a very effective piece of writing so that your thoughts are communicated the way that you are thinking them. Okay? Your goal is to get somebody to understand what you're thinking, okay? Which is personal for you. So you want to do justice for that. Okay, so sentence fragments versus complete sentences. First of all, a fragment is any group of words that's only part of a sentence, which makes sense because you know what the word fragment means. If I said, I only got to eat a fragment of Joe's candy bar, okay, that means you didn't get to eat the whole thing, right? Sad. All right, so let's look at what a real sentence is. Here's the definition of a complete sentence then. A complete sentence contains both a verb and its subject, which the previous video kind of reviewed for you what that is. So go back and watch that if you are confused by those terms. And it expresses a complete thought. Now, a lot of things about grammar are a little bit confusing. And maybe if you did watch that verb and subject video, you made a little bit of sense, but you're also a little bit confused by some of the terms I used. The nice thing about this third part is that virtually anybody can recognize when a thought is complete or not, okay? And we're going to do some examples so you can kind of see what I mean by that. So let's play a game. Which of these sounds like a complete sentence? Remember, the 3 criteria: has to have a verb, has to have a subject, and has to express a complete thought. So, if any one of those pieces is missing, it's not a sentence, it is a sentence fragment, okay? So if somebody walked up to you and said, because they eat insects, would you feel like that is a complete sentence? No, you all said. Why not? Okay, well, let's look. Does it have a verb? Is there some sort of action happening here or some sort of state of being mentioned? Eat. That's an action, right? Some of you are eating right now, no doubt. Probably a spicy chip of some sort, because that's what you all eat. They eat insects. So who or what eats? They. Now, some students get hung up on that, and they say, well, there is no subject because we don't know who they is. They is the subject. Now, presumably, if this were in an essay of some sort or an article, the previous sentence would tell you who the heck they are, because they is a pronoun. It's standing in for a noun, okay? Because they eat subjects. So we have our verb, we have our subject. So why is this not a complete sentence? Why is this a sentence fragment? Well, it's not a complete thought. Because they eat insects. What happens because they eat insects? Okay, it's this word right here. Now let me back up and say something. If you ever had a teacher who said, don't start a sentence with because, and no doubt your teacher sounded like that, okay? They're wrong. You can start a sentence with because. You just have to complete the thought. Because they eat insects. So let's start by saying it's an incomplete thought. Incomplete thought. And then let's try to revise it. Now what if I said, I'm going to copy and paste this sucker. What if I said, because they eat insects, comma, spiders are our friends. Okay, so now I'm telling you what happens because. Okay, because they eat insects, what? Because they eat insects, spiders are our friends. That also answers the question, who is they? All right, so That's an example of a fragment that is a fragment because it's an incomplete thought. Let's look at another one. Is a large hairy spider. Do we have here either a verb that describes an action or some sort of state of being? Well, if you watch that subject and verb video, I talked about being verbs are any form of the word be. And believe it or not, is a form of the word be. Okay, so is describes a state of being. So we do have a verb here, actually. Do we have a subject? So who or what is? It doesn't say. So bingo, it's not because we're missing a subject. No subject. So how can we fix it? What is a large hairy spider? Well, I happen to know that tarantulas, the tarantula will say. The tarantula is a large hairy spider. No? Yes, it's true. So now I've turned it into a complete sentence because I added in a subject. How about this one? Some tarantulas of South America to a body length of 3.5 inches. What are we missing here? Do we have some sort of action or state of being, otherwise known as a verb? Some tarantulas of South America to a body length of 3.5 inches. No, we do not. So this is a sentence fragment because there is no verb here. So how could we add a verb in that would make sense in this sentence? Some tarantulas of South America to a body length of 3.5 inches. Well, I'm going to say grow to a body length, right? So now we've added in our verb. How about although tarantulas are feared? Do we have a verb here? Although tarantulas are feared? Yes, are feared. That is your verb. What, who, or what are feared? Tarantulas. So bingo, we have a subject and a verb here. We have the verb, are feared, the subject, tarantulas. Does it express a complete thought? Let's hear it again. How does it sound? Although tarantulas are feared, it's a cliffhanger ending. You're hanging on the edge of your seat because you want to know what happens although they are feared. So no, this is not a complete sentence because it is an incomplete thought. So how could we fix it? Fix it, please. When I was a kid, I had a kid's book called Fix It, Please. And it said that phrase over and over again, so I think of it often. Oh no, it split it onto 2 pages. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move it down here so we can look at it all together and not be confused. Although tarantulas are feared. Although tarantulas are feared, comma, they are harmless. People fear them even though they're harmless. Although I heard a horror story once, I don't know if this is true, that a kindergarten class, they were petting tarantulas, and I guess like the fuzzy stuff on the tarantula came off on a kid's hand, and he rubbed it in his eye, and it freaking blinded him. I don't know if that's true, but that scared me, and I've never forgotten that story. So take this sentence with a grain of salt. I think that they can be harmful. Although it wasn't their fault. They didn't ask to be petted. All right, let's do a couple more. Does not like spiders at all. Do we have a verb of some sort? Like. It's a mental action. You like or don't like something. It's something you do with your mind, kind of. It's a feeling, man. And actually, does like is the full verb, and not is describing it, making it a negative. But that's some highfalutin grammar for you. So who or what does not like? That's the question. We have no subject. We have a verb without a subject. So sad. No subject. Or subject, as it were. All right, so how can we fix this? Who or what does not like spiders at all? You know, I'm going to pick on myself, even though this isn't really true. I'll say Ms. Harrison does not like spiders at all. Period. All right, let's do the last one. Because spiders are so widely feared, they're misunderstood. Okay. So, do we have an action happening here? Or some sort of linking verb or being verb. Because spiders are so widely feared. Are feared. That is actually a verb. Okay. Who or what are feared? Spiders. So we have the verb and its subject. But watch out. We actually have a second verb in this sentence. Can you believe it? Pause the video now and see if you can find it before I reveal. No? Okay. I'll just tell you. We have a contraction here. Remember, contractions are two different words that are smooshed together. Usually the second word, the verb, is shortened, and we throw in a little apostrophe in its place. So instead of saying they are misunderstood, we say they're misunderstood. But this stands for the word are, which is a form of the word be. And who are misunderstood? They. So we actually have two subjects and two verbs. So we have both here. Now, as a sentence, okay, does this whole thing make sense? Because spiders are widely feared, they're misunderstood. Yes. Now, if I had stopped here, because spiders are so widely feared, then we would have a fragment. It would be very similar to this one. Although tarantulas are feared, because spiders are widely feared, okay? That would be a fragment on its own. But see how we fixed this one up here? Although tarantulas are feared, they are harmless, okay? It's very similar sentence structure here. Because spiders are so widely feared, they're misunderstood. So you can start with a word like because or although. Those are called conjunctions. There's a specific type of conjunction. If you don't know what the word conjunction means, don't worry. But you can start with those types of words. You just have to answer it later. You have to answer for it. So yes, this one is a complete sentence. Why? Because it has a subject, verb, and it's a complete thought. All right, so this shows you how to recognize sentence fragments and how to change them into complete sentences.